So, the apocalypse. From zombies to ice ages to just everything blowing up, there's lots of ways to drive humanity to extinction, and it seems clear that our modern depressed brains are somewhat fascinated with how our civilization will meet its end. In TV, films, games and anime, the Earth can come tumbling down in a matter of hours, yet a lot of the time it's hard from a writing standpoint to make the apocalypse anything more than a meaningless fireworks show. Today we're going to talk about a show that does the apocalypse right, and it's a little number I like to call Devilman Crybaby. Devilman Crybaby's version of the apocalypse is a finite one. Little spoiler warning by the way, if you haven't seen the show already. After Akira loses his battle to Lucifer, also known as Ryu, and the last of humanity is killed, orbs of light blast the Earth apart. There's going to be no spin-off series detailing the adventures of a group of survivors in the dystopia that is left. That's it. God hits that sweet refresh button and we just have to move on. Already, this cold annihilation and finality sets Devilman apart from other apocalyptic stories, though Devilman Crybaby is a series that sets itself apart from minute one. In everything from its visual style to the adult imagery and themes that it flaunts, Devilman Crybaby is not the show that pops into your dad's head when he hears the word anime. It's the 18-rated anime your cool uncle has on the top shelf of his DVD collection, the one series he won't let you watch because he knows if he does, your mum's gonna kill him. Naked bodies and aggressive violence are rife in Devilman, though both of these shouldn't distract any view of Crybaby from what sits at its heart. Beneath a thin layer of edginess are heavy, grounded themes surrounding identity, religion, family, and humanity. Each of these are given the same amount of detail you'd find in a more realistic drama series, but through the melodrama of demons and angels and the visual distractions of boobies and blood, we're given these themes in what is arguably more easily identifiable and digestible form. In the apocalypse, not all of these themes find their completion, but many of them certainly do, which helps give the apocalypse meaning where it often has not. When writing the apocalypse, especially one in which the world is obliterated, as is in the case of Devilman Crybaby, it's hard for your story not to appear meaningless. I mean, what's left of art, science, and all that jazz, when all that's left is nothingness? Character deaths usually don't matter because no one is alive to remember them, plot points are all thrown out the window, and character arcs can become unsatisfying as they all come to an end as the world does. Devilman Crybaby, though, doesn't fall to becoming meaningless. The apocalypse, in a way, is the point of the story. It is the final moment deservedly, rather than being thrown in because there is no other way to end the story. The first thing Devilman Crybaby does in ensuring that its apocalypse is meaningful is creating a smaller world. In Devilman, we don't care about global warming, or Tom Holland and Zendaya, or the Queen of England. Our world is entirely centred around Akira and his relationships with those close to him. Other humans that don't know Akira might make small appearances, and there are those that know the devil Amon within Akira rather than Akira himself, but these characters aren't major players in the story because they aren't a part of Akira's world. We only really care for Akira, Ryu, Miki and her family within the story because those are the people that matter most. If Devilman were to flood the show with multiple characters that all have their own detailed storylines, then by 10 episodes we wouldn't really know anyone, but in the way that it stands, Akira's story is a heartbreaking one. We're given so much time with him and those that make up his world that by the final episodes Akira's world has already ended, as those he loved have died one by one. This makes the end of the actual world nothing more than a formality. Building on the relationships between Akira and those around him, Devilman Crybaby is acutely aware of what its stakes are, and setting them up so that by the time Mickey's head is placed on a pike and Ryu is revealed to be Lucifer himself, we are surprised, but not to a point where we cannot connect the dots as an audience. From the club scene in episode 1, where Akira is possessed by Amon, we can tell things are going to get a bit hectic. Following that, the show builds and builds the threat of devils in the world, showing through news bulletins and secondary characters how the Earth is quickly becoming a battleground and more people are being possessed like Akira. The reveals and plot twists towards the end are shocking, but on reflection we should have seen them coming. If you feel like an idiot for not realising a twist was coming, that's how you know it was good. Blowing up the world is just the final over-the-top cherry on Devilman Crybaby's wild, melodramatic cake. Without the end of the world, the series doesn't have a satisfying ending. In Devilman Crybaby, the end of the world matters much more than any story where Akira or his world survives. Though we really wish Ryu could get his pretty face kicked in, the writing of Crybaby ensures that the absolute apocalypse matters more than a heroic win. Despite the extinction of humanity, Someone is there to suffer the consequences of the apocalypse, and that gives it meaning. Through Ryu, in his final moments with Akira, do we see why the apocalypse matters. To Ryu, destroying Akira and all that he loved is the summary of his selfishness, and his inability to share Akira with anyone. In blowing up the world, Ryu has killed his greatest friend, and if we're using friend in the same way people who call Achilles and Patroclus friends do, and that leaves him with nothing, as God smites the devils from the earth. In Ryu then having nothing, we as an audience have something. The apocalypse is the sum of Ryu's desperate attempt to leave he and Akira as the only beings in the world. In his selfishness, Ryu decimated both the human and devil populations, driving both to extinction because he could not allow Akira to love or be near anyone else. We see this earlier in the series with Ryu's lack of care and general disdain for Miki, the person who Akira cares for most in the world. Ryu's flawed pursuit of love shows him to be the flawed, fallen angel Lucifer, more so even than his reveal. His passion goes beyond the point of sin as Ryu loses himself to lust, greed, envy, pride, and eventually wrath, the final sin appearing as he splits Akira in two. In the indulgence of these sins, Ryu ends the world so that he may live alone with Akira, only realising the failure of these plans when it's already too late. When you end the world, no matter how you do it, you've got to have a reason. Usually this reasoning is either the apocalypse begins or ends your story. The most important thing to shy away from, though, is making the apocalypse a mere spectacle, reducing the meaning behind the end of the world to nothing more than an excuse for a dystopian soap opera. The reason in creating the apocalypse and having Akira die in Devilman Crybaby, on the other hand, is one final gut punch to the viewer. We all wanted to see Ryu fall, to see some sort of redemption after so many wrongs before Akira, yet Devilman just isn't that type of story. It makes us grow close to its cast, even making us like those we disliked at first, only to then have them die in tragic and brutal manners. In looking at the series in this light, the end of the world is the only way the Crybaby meets its proper end, with the dead Akira and Ryu staring at the stars, the last beings on Earth before God wipes it clean. Nothing else would have satisfied the scale that Devilman builds to, and it would have felt unjust to leave the series without ending the world. Not only does it feel right in terms of writing, but morally it seems almost a mercy to Akira to end the world. As Mickey's head is left bobbing up and down on a pike, surrounded by maddened, dancing humans, Akira sees humanity as something that is no longer worth protecting, and burns the humans to ash in one of the series' most satisfying scenes. Humanity and devils both prove themselves to be beings incapable of understanding and coexisting, and Akira as well sees nothing to be done except try and take down Ryu. He's given up on humans and never really liked devils in the first place, so the world that they both populate is nothing at this point. Akira's final fight is not to even save the world or what's left of it, but it's blind revenge against Ryu. The end of the world is something both Akira and Ryu desire by the end of the series, but for vastly different meanings. It is the sum of both their arcs for entirely different reasons, so it becomes Devilman Crybaby's only possible ending. For Ryu, ending the world means he and Akira can live together, whereas for Akira, ending the world means ending himself. Writing the apocalypse is a difficult thing, especially when it is such an absolute end of the world as we see in Devilman Crybaby. But so long as it remains tied to the arcs of your characters and doesn't make the story seem meaningless, you're doing just fine. If you can make your audience cry while Lucifer is lying naked on a rock, well, then you're truly winning. But that's about all I have to say on Devilman Crybaby. I've been Bathtub Running, and I can't thank you enough for stopping by.